The American Revolution by Shu and Olivia. Motivations for colonization. The English were motivated to colonize for a couple of reasons, one primarily being religion. Many people were unsatisfied with the incomplete Reformation, so they traveled to North America to conclude such Reformation. Puritan groups also seek new land to create a pure state. Others also found themselves losing jobs, homes, and money to taxes. These people were in search of a place to live and depending on the land, make money on exporting natural resources. The 13 colonies. The 13 colonies were established in 1607, with the first one starting in Jamestown, Virginia. All 13 lie on the east coast of the United States. Colonial America had different reasons for the establishment of each colony. The southern colonies were seeking natural resources. The New England colonies were filled with religious reformers, and the middle colonies included people from diverse lifestyles. Navigation Acts of 1651. The Navigation Act of 1651 banned foreign ships from transporting goods from outside Europe to England or its colonies. It also banned third-party ships from transporting goods from a country elsewhere in Europe to England. The French and Indian War and English death. The French and Indian War began in 1754 and ended in 1763. It resulted from frontier tensions as both French and British imperial officials sought to extend each country's influence in frontier regions. The war ended by the signing of the Treaty of Paris by France, Great Britain, and Spain. After the war, England was in massive debt. This led them having smaller profits from the East India Company, so they started taxing American colonies. King George III. King George III was the King of Ireland and England from 1760 to 1801. Once he was king, he returned Britain to a traditional monarchy after the fall of the House of Stuart. George was a very generous man who often gave to the poor. The most major event in his reign was the Revolutionary War, and he was determined to fight until they won. The king was very much against the colonies being an independent nation, for he sought money and power from them. The Proclamation of 1763. The Proclamation of 1763 was an official order passed by King George III that forbid all settlement past the line down along the Appalachian Mountains. It angered colonists because this prevented them from trying to explore and expand into Western territory, and those who already settled there in that region needed to come out to the eastern side of the Appalachian. The Stamp Act. Public response: no taxation without representation. The Stamp Act imposed a tax on all paper documents in colonies. The colonists were very angry and tried to abolish it. This demand was more than most people can afford. The colonists were being taxed by British Parliament without their approval. The Sons of Liberty. This is a secret society to protect the rights of colonists. They wanted to fight against taxation passed by British Parliament. This involved Paul Revere, John Adams, and Samuel Adams. Boston Massacre. The Boston Massacre occurred on March 5, 1770. 5 people were killed by Boston soldiers because they were thrown some snowballs at them. This event helped reignite calls for ending the relationship between American colonists and British. It also made colonial society against British, which led to the American Revolutionary War. The Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was held by the Sons of Liberty. It was against the Tea Act and generally against taxation without representation. The result of the Boston Tea Party was that British shut down Boston Harbor until all 340 chests of British East India Company were paid for. This also led to the Boston Port Act, as known as the Intolerable Acts. Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense to inspire people in the 13 colonies to fight against unfair ways of King George III and British Parliament. He spoke to common people of America with plain language that the first work was to openly ask for independence from the British. Enlightenment of thinkers that influenced the American Revolution. John Locke. Every man has 3 natural rights: life, liberty, and prosperity. People agree to give up some of their rights for the sake of preserving society, but have rights to rebel. Montesquieu. He said that the government must have 3 separation of powers: executive, legislative, and judicial. and freedom and liberty. And he also said that they should have checks and balances. Their beliefs in the natural rights of humans inspired the American and French Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson and adopted by the Second Continental. It declared the reasons that colonies should be independent from the British. It has 5 parts: the Statement of Human Rights, charges against human rights, charges against king and parliament, and the Statement of Separation, and signatures. It was a declaration of war against the British. The Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War started on April 19, 1775. It was the Continental Army, who was led by George Washington, against the British, who were led by General William Lowe. The war was fought on American soil, which was an advantage for the colonials, but a disadvantage for the British. The colonials also had an advantage of not having to ship their belongings overseas, and they knew the land better. The Revolutionary War. Along with the colonials, the British had advantages. Britain had one of the best militaries, with them being disciplined, well-paid, and well-fed. They also had a great navy. Lastly, the loyalists in the colonies, who remained loyal to the British Crown during the war, so they had supporters in the colonies. Throughout the war, there were over 600,000 deaths. The war ended with an American victory in September of 1783. The Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris was a negotiation between the United States and Great Britain. It was signed on September 3, 1783, to end the Revolutionary War. The terms were recognized by Great Britain that America was an independent nation. The Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation is a written document that established the functions of the national government of the United States after they declared independence from Great Britain. What was wrong, though, was that it did not have provisions to enforce laws or for a national court system to enforce them. The Constitution. The U.S. Constitution was signed on September 17, 1787. It was ratified because the states had to approve of the new government before it could go into effect. It was better than the other documents because it created a stronger and cohesive government. And lastly, the election of George Washington. George Washington was elected on February 4, 1789, to be the president of the newly independent United States. He was chosen because he was a great war leader in the Revolutionary War, and he led the country to a much-desired, independent, united nation. Thank you for watching!